The smell of rain on hot cement permeated the air as Marcus Winters adjusted his navy blue tie, a gesture more habitual than necessary. His tailored suit, a $3,000 armor that typically commanded respect in the boardrooms of São Paulo's financial district, felt suddenly inappropriate, even dangerous, in these unfamiliar surroundings. The narrow streets of Jardim Esperança twisted like veins through crumbling brick and exposed rebar, a maze of poverty he'd only glimpsed from the climate-controlled sanctuary of his car. Until today. The flat tire wouldn't have been a catastrophe if his driver hadn't called in sick, or if he hadn't been so stubbornly determined to make the meeting himself rather than reschedule, or if his phone hadn't died at the precise moment the dashboard warning light had appeared. A perfect storm of inconveniences that had forced him to pull over in this neighborhood, this place he'd spent 43 years of his life deliberately avoiding. "Can I help you, sir?" The voice startled him. A young man, perhaps 20, wearing a faded t-shirt and watching him with guarded curiosity. Marcus straightened, one hand instinctively moving to protect the pocket containing his wallet. "I need a mechanic and a phone. Mine's dead." The young man's eyes narrowed slightly, taking in the Rolex, the handmade shoes, the general aura of wealth that clung to Marcus like expensive cologne. "There's no mechanic here. Not officially, but my uncle might help. He's good with cars." "I don't need amateur help," Marcus said, the words escaping before he could filter them. "I need a professional service. Surely someone here has a working phone I can use." The young man's expression hardened. "Everyone has phones, sir. Whether they'll let you use them is another question." A small crowd had gathered now, watching the exchange with undisguised interest. Marcus felt exposed, vulnerable. The weight of dozens of eyes assessing him, measuring his worth, not by his financial portfolio, but by some metric he couldn't comprehend. The smell of rain intensified as dark clouds gathered overhead, promising a downpour. "I'll pay," Marcus said, reaching for his wallet. 50 reais to use someone's phone for a 5-minute call. The silence that followed was punctuated only by distant thunder. Then someone laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "The rich man wants to throw money at his problems," a voice called out. 75, Marcus counted, a flutter of panic rising in his chest. He was used to negotiating multi-million-dollar deals, yet here he stood, bargaining for something as simple as a phone call. "Hey, leave him alone!" A new voice cut through the tension. A middle-aged man pushed through the small crowd, his simple button-down shirt worn but clean, his eyes direct and unafraid. "This isn't how we treat visitors, regardless of who they are." The crowd reluctantly dispersed, though several faces continued watching from doorways and windows. The newcomer approached Marcus with an extended hand. "I'm Gabriel Oliveira. You look like you're having a difficult day." Marcus took the offered hand hesitantly. "Marcus Winters. My car has a flat tire, and my phone is dead. I just need to call for assistance." "Come to my home," Gabriel said, gesturing toward a modest structure halfway down the street. "You can use our phone, and we'll figure out what to do about your car." Every instinct told Marcus to decline, to find another solution. Any solution that didn't involve following a stranger into the depths of this neighborhood. But the first heavy raindrops were beginning to fall, and his options were embarrassingly limited. "Thank you," he said stiffly, the words unfamiliar on his tongue. When was the last time he'd genuinely thanked someone? He couldn't remember. Gabriel's home was small but meticulously maintained. 2 rooms, from what Marcus could see, a combined kitchen and living area, and what he presumed was a bedroom behind a partially closed door. A teenage girl looked up from a textbook spread across the small table, her eyes widening at the sight of Marcus. "This is my daughter, Lucia," Gabriel said. "Lucia, Mr. Winters needs to use our phone." "It's charging in the bedroom," she said, her voice soft but not timid. "I'll get it." As she disappeared into the other room, Marcus noticed a small, worn book on the table beside Lucia's textbook. Its leather cover was cracked with age, the gold lettering on its spine barely legible. A Bible. Something in him recoiled slightly at the sight, a visceral reaction he couldn't fully explain. "Please sit," Gabriel said, pulling out a wooden chair. "You're soaked." Only then did Marcus realize that rain had indeed drenched his suit during their short walk. His carefully constructed appearance was compromised, hair plastered to his forehead, water dripping from his chin onto his silk tie. He felt diminished, undignified. "Coffee?" Gabriel offered, already moving toward a small stove. "No, thank you. I just need to make the call and be on my way." The thought of accepting anything more than absolutely necessary from these people made him uncomfortable. Charity was something he gave, not received. Lucia returned with an older model smartphone. "The battery is at 30%, she said, handing it to Marcus. His fingers trembled slightly as he dialed his assistant's number. The line rang 4 times before going to voicemail. He tried again with the same result. His driver, voicemail. The car service he occasionally used, closed for the day. The tick-tick-tick of an old wall clock marked the passage of time as Marcus exhausted his options one by one. Outside, the rain had intensified, drumming against the tin roof like impatient fingers. That smell again, rain on cement, on earth, somehow both cleansing and oppressive. "No luck?" Gabriel asked, setting a mug of coffee before Marcus despite his refusal. No. The admission cost him something. Pride, perhaps. "But I appreciate the phone. I should go back to my car before someone decides it's worth stripping for parts." Gabriel exchanged a look with his daughter. "It's not safe for you to wait there alone, especially dressed as you are." "I can handle myself," Marcus said, though they all knew it wasn't true. Not here. Not in this context. "Papa," Lucia said quietly, "we should help him." Gabriel nodded as if he'd already decided this course of action. "I have some tools. I can change your tire if you have a spare." Marcus began, then stopped. What choice did he have? "Yes, there's a spare in the trunk." "Good, but not now. The rain is too heavy and it will be dark soon. You'll stay for dinner and we'll fix your car in the morning." The proposition was presented as a statement of fact rather than an offer, and Marcus found himself without the vocabulary to refuse. He glanced again at the Bible on the table, its presence somehow both reassuring and accusing. "I don't want to impose," he said, the words hollow even to his own ears. Gabriel smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. "Sharing what little we have is no imposition, Mr. Winters. It's a privilege." As Gabriel and Lucia moved around the small kitchen, preparing a simple meal, Marcus sat uncomfortably in the borrowed chair, a rich man reduced to accepting charity from those who could least afford to give it. The irony wasn't lost on him, nor was the unfamiliar feeling blooming in his chest, something between shame and wonder. The rain continued its percussion on the roof, and the old clock ticked away minutes that felt somehow both wasted and precious. Marcus removed his wetsuit jacket, draping it carefully over the back of his chair. Without it, he felt strangely exposed, as if he'd removed more than just a layer of expensive wool. Dinner was beans and rice with a small portion of chicken, served on mismatched plates that had seen years of use. Marcus ate mechanically at first, then with increasing appreciation. When was the last time he'd had a home-cooked meal? His housekeeper prepared food that he often ate alone in his expansive dining room, or he dined in expensive restaurants where the presentation of the food was more important than its taste. "This is good," he said, surprising himself with the sincerity of the compliment. Lucia beamed. "Papa taught me how to cook. He says food made with love always tastes better." Gabriel shrugged modestly. "My mother's wisdom, not mine." The conversation flowed more easily than Marcus would have expected, carefully navigating around the obvious disparities in their lives. Gabriel spoke of his work as a maintenance man at a local school, of Lucia's achievements as a student, of their small community's struggles and triumphs. Marcus found himself sharing sanitized versions of his own life, his company's latest project, a recent trip to New York, his collection of rare watches. It was during a lull in the conversation that they heard it. Heavy footsteps on the street outside, followed by raised voices. Gabriel's expression changed instantly, the warmth replaced by concern. "Lucia, go to Mrs. Ferreira's," he said quietly but firmly. The girl didn't argue, quickly gathering her books. She cast one worried glance at her father before slipping out a back door Marcus hadn't noticed before. "What's happening?" Marcus asked, tension coiling in his stomach. "Some of the local boys saw your car," Gabriel said, moving to the window and carefully peering out. "Expensive vehicles attract attention here, especially when abandoned." "It's not abandoned. It's just, they don't make that distinction." Gabriel turned to face him. "And they've been asking about the man in the suit who was seen entering my home." The implication settled over Marcus like a shroud. "I've put you in danger." "You didn't know." Gabriel's voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed his concern. "But it might be best if you're not visible for a while." He led Marcus to the small bedroom, which contained nothing more than a neatly made bed, a dresser with a cracked mirror, and a small table supporting a lamp with a frayed shade. The warm yellow glow it cast seemed incongruously cheerful given the circumstances. "Stay here," Gabriel instructed. "I'll speak with them." Before Marcus could protest, Gabriel was gone, closing the door behind him. Through the thin walls, Marcus could hear the front door open, followed by multiple voices, young, male, aggressive. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Threat, demand, challenge. Gabriel's responses were measured, reasonable. The exchange grew heated. Something crashed, glass breaking, and Marcus flinched. This was his fault. His presence had brought this danger into Gabriel's home. The voices receded eventually, but Gabriel didn't return immediately. Marcus paced the small room, his designer shoes incongruous against the worn floorboards. The smell of rain persisted, now mingled with the earthier scent of dust and old wood. The tick-tick-tick of the clock in the other room seemed to have accelerated, marking time with merciless precision. When Gabriel finally opened the door, his split lip and the dark stain on his shirt, blood, Marcus realized with a jolt, told their own story. "Are you all right?" Marcus asked, the question laughably inadequate. Gabriel touched his lip gingerly. "Nothing serious, but there's a problem. They've damaged your car, slashed the tires, broken the windows. They're watching it, waiting for you to return." "Why would they?" Marcus began, then understood. "They think I'm wealthy, that I'll be worth robbing." "You are wealthy," Gabriel said simply, "and in their eyes that makes you both a target and an enemy." The blunt assessment stung, not because it was false, but because it was undeniably true. In his tailored suit and handmade shoes, with his Rolex and his manicured nails, Marcus was the embodiment of everything these young men would never have. His very existence was an accusation. "What now?" he asked, hating the helplessness in his voice. "You'll stay the night. In the morning we'll find a way to get you safely back to your world." Gabriel left briefly and returned with a thin blanket and pillow. "Take the bed. I'll sleep in the other room." "I can't take your bed," Marcus protested, though the thought of sleeping on the floor or the small sofa he'd seen in the main room was equally unpalatable. "You're a guest," Gabriel said firmly, "and tomorrow will be difficult enough without you being sleep-deprived." And as Gabriel turned to leave, Marcus noticed a small wooden cross hanging on the wall beside the bed. It was simple, unadorned, a stark contrast to the ornate crucifix that had hung in his childhood home, more decorative art than religious symbol. "Thank you," he said, the words still awkward, but less forced than before. "I don't deserve your kindness." Gabriel paused at the door. "Kindness isn't about deserving, Mr. Winters. It's about recognizing our common humanity." And alone in the small bedroom, Marcus removed his tie and shoes, placing them carefully beside the bed. The sheets were clean, but worn thin with countless washings. He lay awake, listening to the continuing rain and the occasional distant shout from the street. The rich man begged for help in a poor neighborhood and was welcomed by a Christian family. The irony of his situation wasn't lost on him. He who had never begged for anything in his adult life, reduced to accepting charity from those who had every reason to turn him away. Morning arrived with watery sunlight filtering through a torn curtain. Marcus woke disoriented, the unfamiliar surroundings momentarily bewildering until memory rushed back. He'd slept in his shirt and trousers, unwilling to further expose himself in this strange environment. Gabriel was already awake, the smell of coffee filling the small home. There was no sign of Lucia. "She's staying with our neighbor until this is resolved," Gabriel explained, noticing Marcus's questioning look. "Safer that way." "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and meant it. "This is entirely my fault." "Not entirely," Gabriel replied, passing him a chipped mug of coffee. "Those boys make their own choices, but your presence has certainly complicated things." They ate a simple breakfast of bread and fruit, the tick-tick-tick of the clock, a constant reminder of time passing. Marcus found himself studying Gabriel surreptitiously, noting the calluses on his hands, the lines around his eyes, the quiet dignity in his bearing despite his circumstances. "Why are you helping me?" Marcus finally asked. "You don't know me. I'm nothing but trouble to you." Gabriel considered the question, his eyes drifting to the small Bible on the table. "Because it's what I believe is right, and because 20 years ago I worked for a company called Winters Development." The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. His father's company, now his company. "You worked for my family." "Briefly. I was part of the maintenance crew for your office building. I was fired when budget cuts came down. No warning, no severance, just, we don't need you anymore." I had a pregnant wife and a mortgage. The revelation hung between them, altering the dynamic in ways Marcus couldn't fully process. Gabriel had every reason to resent him, perhaps even hate him. Yet here he was, sharing his food, his home, risking his safety. "I don't remember that," Marcus said. Which was true, but also a poor excuse. "Why would you? It wasn't personal to you, just business." Gabriel's tone held no bitterness, which somehow made it worse. "But it taught me something important about the difference between wealth and value." Before Marcus could respond, a sharp knock at the door froze them both. Gabriel motioned for silence, moving cautiously to answer it. Marcus held his breath, expecting the worst. The visitor was an older woman, her voice hushed but urgent. Gabriel listened, nodded, thanked her, and closed the door. "That was Mrs. Ferreira, my neighbor. The boys who were here last night, they're coming back. With others. They're convinced you're hiding valuables, that you're worth ransoming. We need to move quickly." The urgency in Gabriel's voice propelled Marcus into action. He gathered his jacket, tie, and shoes, donning them with trembling fingers. His external trappings of wealth now felt like a death sentence. "What's the plan?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "There's a back way through the alley. Mrs. Ferreira's son has a motorbike. He can take you to the main road where you can find a taxi." It was a reasonable plan, their best option under the circumstances. Yet Marcus hesitated, his eyes drawn again to the Bible on the table. "What about you? They'll know you helped me escape." Gabriel's smile was tired but genuine. "This is my home, my community. They may be angry for a while, but eventually they'll understand I was just doing what I believe is right." The simple faith in that statement struck Marcus as both profound and naive. "They hurt you last night just for talking to me. And yet here I stand," Gabriel replied. "Sometimes the worst things we fear don't come to pass." As they prepared to leave, Gabriel tucked the small Bible into a pocket. The gesture seemed significant somehow, though Marcus couldn't have explained why. The tick-tick-tick of the clock sounded almost like a countdown now, marking the minutes until danger arrived at their door. They slipped out the back entrance into a narrow alley, slick with rain puddles. The smell of wet earth was stronger here, mixed with garbage and something indefinably urban. Marcus followed Gabriel through the labyrinthine passages between buildings, trying to step where he stepped, to blend in despite his inappropriate attire. They had almost reached Mrs. Ferreira's home when voices echoed from around a corner ahead. Gabriel pulled Marcus into a recessed doorway, pressing a finger to his lips. Heavy footsteps approached, accompanied by the distinctive clink of glass bottles. "They've cut us off," Gabriel whispered. "They must have guessed our plan." The realization that they were trapped sent a spike of fear through Marcus's chest. In his world, danger came in the form of hostile takeovers and contract disputes. Here it wore the face of desperate young men with nothing to lose. "What now?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Gabriel reached into his pocket and withdrew the small Bible, pressing it into Marcus's hand. "Take this. Keep going straight, then left at the blue door. Mrs. Ferreira's is the third house. Tell her I sent you." "What about you?" "I'll create a diversion. Give you time to get away." The plan was simple, selfless, and entirely unacceptable. "No, I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me." "It's my choice," Gabriel said firmly, "and it's the right thing to do." Before Marcus could argue further, Gabriel stepped out of the doorway and called out to the approaching group. "Hey, I'm the one you want to talk to." The footsteps quickened, voices raised in recognition and triumph. Gabriel began running in the opposite direction from their planned route, drawing their pursuers away from Marcus. For a moment, Marcus stood frozen in indecision. The small Bible in his hand seemed suddenly heavy, its presence a silent accusation. The rich man begged for help in poor neighborhood and was welcomed by a Christian family. But when the moment of crisis came, he was prepared to let his savior face danger alone. The realization galvanized him. Clutching the Bible, Marcus emerged from hiding and followed the sounds of pursuit. He rounded a corner to find Gabriel surrounded by 5 young men, their postures aggressive, their intentions clear in their faces. "Stop!" Marcus called out, his voice carrying unexpected authority. "I'm the one you want." All eyes turned to him. Gabriel's expression shifted from surprise to dismay. "Mr. Winters, don't—" "I'm Marcus Winters," he continued, addressing the group, "CEO of Winters Development. If it's money you want, I can provide it. But this man has done nothing wrong." The apparent leader of the group, a tall youth with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow, stepped forward. "We know who you are. Rich man in his fancy suit coming to our neighborhood. What are you doing here? Buying property to kick us all out?" The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely unfounded. Winters Development had been involved in several urban renewal projects that had displaced low-income residents. Projects Marcus had approved with signatures on papers, never seeing the human cost. "I'm here because my car broke down," he said honestly, "and this man helped me when he had no reason to. He took me into his home, shared his food, protected me from harm. I owe him my life." The young men exchanged glances, clearly uncertain about this new development. The leader's eyes narrowed. "So now what? You expect us to just let you both walk away?" Marcus felt the weight of the Bible in his hand, its worn cover smooth against his palm. With deliberate movements, he removed his Rolex and held it out. "This watch is worth more than 30,000 reais. Take it. Let us go." The leader's eyes widened at the offering, but suspicion quickly returned. "Why would you give that up for him? He's nobody to you." The question struck at the heart of something Marcus had been grappling with since entering Gabriel's home. Why did this stranger's welfare matter to him? Why was he, who measured value in financial terms, suddenly willing to sacrifice material wealth for someone else's safety? "Because he showed me mercy when he could have turned me away," Marcus said slowly, the truth of it unfolding as he spoke. "He offered forgiveness for wrongs I didn't even know I'd committed against him. He treated me as a person, not a wallet." The leader took the watch, examining it carefully before pocketing it. "Nice words from a rich man. Easy to be generous when you have so much." "You're right," Marcus acknowledged. "I have more than I need, while people in this neighborhood struggle for necessities. That's a failure I need to address. But right now, all I'm asking is that you let us both go safely." Uday, there was a long moment of tense silence, broken only by the distant sound of thunder. The rain had started again, a gentle patter that gradually intensified. That smell, rain on cement, on earth, enveloped them all, a reminder of their shared environment despite their differences. "Take your Bible-thumping friend and go," the leader finally said, stepping aside. "But don't come back to Jardim Esperança, Mr. Winters. Next time, we won't be so understanding." Relief flooded through Marcus, quickly followed by caution. He moved to Gabriel's side, noting the older man's split lip had reopened during the confrontation. "Thank you," he said to the young men, meaning it. They retreated slowly, keeping their eyes on the group until they reached the end of the alley. Only when they were truly alone did Gabriel speak. "That was foolish," he said, but there was a note of admiration in his voice. "They could have hurt you, or worse." Marcus handed the Bible back to Gabriel. "They could have hurt you too, because of me." Gabriel accepted the book, his fingers tracing the worn cover with familiar affection. "I've faced worse odds." "I'm beginning to believe that," Marcus said. "Now let's find Mrs. Ferreira's son and that motorbike. I think we've both had enough excitement for one day." The journey to the main road was accomplished without further incident. Mrs. Ferreira's son, a solemn young man with a well-maintained motorcycle, seemed unimpressed by Marcus's disheveled appearance and expensive clothes. He drove them expertly through the winding streets until they reached a busy intersection where taxis were plentiful. "This is where we part ways," Gabriel said as they dismounted. "You can find your way from here." Marcus nodded, suddenly reluctant to return to his normal life. Something fundamental had shifted inside him during the past 24 hours, a reordering of priorities he was only beginning to understand. "I gave away my watch," he said, the reality of it just sinking in. "It was a gift from my father when I took over the company." Gabriel's expression was sympathetic, but not pitying. "Material things can be replaced. Lives cannot." "No, they can't." Marcus extended his hand. "Thank you, Gabriel, for everything." Gabriel took the offered hand, his grip firm, despite his evident exhaustion. "Go in peace, Mr. Winters." "Marcus," he corrected, "please." Gabriel smiled. "Go in peace, Marcus." As Marcus hailed a taxi, he felt the absence of his watch. Not just its physical weight on his wrist, but the emotional significance it had carried. Strangely, he felt lighter without it. "Where to, sir?" the taxi driver asked. Marcus gave the address of his penthouse apartment, then hesitated. "Actually, make a stop first. There's something I need to do." 3 weeks later, Gabriel Oliveira opened his front door to find a courier holding a large envelope. Inside was a deed transferring ownership of the building where he lived to a newly formed community trust, along with funds for repairs and improvements. A note was attached, written on expensive stationery. The rich man begged for help in a poor neighborhood and was welcomed by a Christian family. "This seems inadequate repayment for what you taught me, but it's a start. More to follow." Marcus 6. Months after that, the first Winters Community Development Center opened in Jardim Esperança, offering job training, educational support, and microloans to local residents. Gabriel was appointed as its director, his practical knowledge of the community's needs proving invaluable. Marcus visited occasionally, no longer out of place in his carefully chosen casual clothes. He'd sold his penthouse, downsized significantly, and redirected much of his company's focus toward ethical urban development that preserved existing communities rather than displacing them. On one such visit, he arrived to find Gabriel in his office, the small worn Bible open on his desk. The tick-tick-tick of a wall clock, a newer model, but with the same rhythmic presence, provided a familiar backdrop to their conversation. "How are things?" Marcus asked, taking a seat. "Challenging, rewarding, never dull," Gabriel replied with a smile. "Your board of directors is still giving you trouble about the reduced profit margins." "They're adjusting," Marcus said, "slowly. But the new direction is starting to show results they understand. Community goodwill translates to fewer legal obstacles, more efficient project completions." Gabriel nodded, his fingers absently tracing the pages of the open Bible. "And you? How are you adjusting?" The question went deeper than professional changes, and they both knew it. Marcus considered his answer carefully. "I'm learning," he said finally, "about value beyond wealth, about the difference between giving charity and creating justice, about seeing people as people, not assets or liabilities." "Difficult lessons," Gabriel acknowledged. "Yes," Marcus agreed, "but necessary ones." Outside, rain began to fall, the smell of it on cement and earth drifting through the open window. It no longer seemed oppressive to Marcus, that scent. Instead, it carried notes of renewal, of cleansing, of life continuing despite hardship. "I never asked," Marcus said, gesturing toward the Bible, "what passage you were reading that day, when you gave it to me in the alley?" Gabriel smiled and turned the book so Marcus could see the highlighted verse. "For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul?" "Appropriate," Marcus said with a rueful smile. "I thought so." Gabriel closed the Bible gently. "But the story doesn't end there. There's always the possibility of finding what was lost." As they sat together in comfortable silence, the sound of children laughing drifted in from the center's playground, a sound that would have been impossible in the Jardim Esperanza of 6 months ago. A small thing, perhaps, measured against the vast inequalities that still existed, but a beginning. A rich man had begged for help in a poor neighborhood and found not just temporary shelter, but a new understanding of wealth and worth. The rain continued, nourishing the small garden the center's children had planted in what had once been an abandoned lot. Seeds taking root, growing, transforming the landscape, one small green shoot at a time.